And this is not the best picture, but this is an Indian Scout Classic. And this cute thing here is a Honda Rebel 1100T. For some reason I thought it was red, but it's actually blue.
Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here, and it's cold in Texas here today. It's wet and rainy and cold as opposed to our regular 95 and 100 degree weather. This is probably one of the coldest days that we've had so far in the year. I think we might have had one earlier, but we've had really mild weather going into winter, and yeah, it's wet, cold, and it's all overcast. My favorite weather. I love to just curl up with my dogs on the couch in weather like this. But oh, I'm so disappointed. I wanted to cry. I went to go look at motorcycles yesterday, and it was on a whim. I was eating a burrito at the Laredo Taco Company. They make these amazing burritos, and I found out that they are in Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. So they're not like nationwide, but if you ever are in that area and you see the logo Laredo Taco Company, it's usually associated with Stripes, which I found out 7-Eleven bought out Stripes, which is a convenience store, like a truck stop type convenience store. And excuse me, they have like a breakfast menu, all kinds of burritos, and then they have a lunch dinner menu. I think it's mostly lunch. I think they shut down after like 3 or 4 or something like that. They don't go too far late in the evening, but they make burritos and fajitas and all kinds of food. Really good food. And so I was trying to hurry up and get there before they stopped selling the burritos. I was off yesterday, and I got to, had to go take all my dogs out and do all that for them. And then I drove down the highway to the truck stop and got me a bacon, egg, and cheese burrito. And I was sitting there scrolling through my phone, looking at stuff, and I watch a lot of motorcycle content. I have for about probably the last 5 or 6 years. I've really gotten into the motorcycle content, and on a whim, I just decided to go to this motorcycle dealership in the bigger city I live next to, and look, just to window shop, just to look, just for fun. I was off for the whole day, not to buy, but kind of to get ideas, because I do love motorcycles. And well, let me go back to the beginning of when I first really started, how it started was with my dad. I was about 3 years old, and he put me on the motorcycle, sat me on the gas tank, and I just held onto his jacket arm, the arms, like that. And he drove me around the block or two, and I loved it. And then my mom came out, you better not drop her or do that again. Shoot, it was dangerous, If you did that nowadays, you would, have a case with CPS or child services, or, that's just the time period I grew up in, with no helmet, no safety belt. And I remember riding in a convertible that we had. I was standing on the hump in the front seat. It was a long bench seat. It was like some kind of old 50s or 60s model convertible. It was like banana yellow, pale yellow. And it was super big and long, and it had these pointy fins. I don't think it was a Cadillac, but it was. I remember looking up those fins on the back fender, and they were like, very, very narrow pointed. And I'm pretty sure it was not a Cadillac, but it was convertible, and I would hang on to the windshield. My dad would be driving. I'd be standing on the hump, and I'd be, go faster, and I could feel the wind in my hair. And that was the funnest thing in the world to me, when I was little. And I was 3 and 4 years old when this was happening, and I have very clear memories of it. I even had an argument with my sister that there's no way you remember at 3 years old being on a motorcycle. And I specifically remembered that moment in my life. And I've talked to people who have remembered things like much, much younger. And I actually remember one time I was on a beach in Louisiana, and I was probably about a year old or something. I think I was in Pampers or something, but I remember sitting there, the water was coming up to me, and I remember that sensation and that feeling. And I remember my mom was there. So I have very clear memories about certain, I mean, not a whole lot, but this one memory of me being on the motorcycle, I absolutely remember. And then my parents divorced. I think he did it one or two more times, but my mom got really mad, really upset with him, so I didn't get to do it again. And then my parents divorced, and we moved to a house that was one house over. Like, skipped a house, and we moved in the house next to that house. And I remember standing on the curb, and this guy came down the street, and I heard this like loud motorcycle. And I just stood there and I watched it. And he was a hippie. He had long hair, and he had the fringe jacket, and this was like in the early 70s, maybe like 1969 or 70. But I remember him, and I was like, oh, in awe of it, and that was my first time ever seeing a Harley Davidson, or that I noticed. And it was the sound, it was getting louder and louder coming down. So, and he had just moved in down at the end of the block, and so he would drive down the street a couple times a day, and me and my little sisters were real tiny. But I remember I would say, the motorcycle man, the motorcycle man. We could hear him, and we'd run out in the front yard, and we'd wave at him, and he'd wave back at us. And so that was something I just remember. And then there were family members that I had, cousins. My aunt and uncle had the big bagger, big, huge, they weren't Harleys. I think they were like some Kawasaki or something like that. I remember riding with her, my aunt and my uncle. They were not rich, but well-off farmers, and they belonged to one of those older middle-aged groups that would get the big expensive motorcycles and travel around. And they rode around with that group for quite a while, a few years. And then I had cousins. I had so many cousins, and lots of them had motorcycles. And then when I was a teenager, we used to stand around the arcade and wait for the guys on the motorcycle to come up and drive through the parking lot, and we'd like, can you give us a ride? Can we have a ride? So a lot of that, which is like probably not the best thing. And then I worked with people that had motorcycles that a few of them I made friends with, and several of them I rode with them. And so I've been around motorcycles all my life. The last 20 years I have not been on a motorcycle. I haven't been around them. When I was a teenager, at one point, I told my mom, I want to get a motorcycle. That did not go well. She was like, you're going to die. You're not getting a motorcycle when you live here. And so and I had to put that out of my mind for a long time. So it was just vicariously through people who own motorcycles that I got to enjoy. I did ride one of my cousin's dirt bikes for literally less than a minute. And I think I talked about when I did my MSF. I got my MSF, or did the MSF course this year and got my endorsement finally. But I had known pretty much how to ride a motorcycle. I've been on a dirt bike, and I don't know. I mean, I'm super inexperienced. I mean, not hardly any experience at all. But I mean, that feeling has never gone away. And I'm nearly 60. I'll be 60 in a couple months. And I feel more and more like I miss something so much in my younger years that, I have a lot of regret about it. And it still is biting me, to do this, give me at least a good 10 years. Let me enjoy this, And I was always so busy working 2 jobs, trying to survive, trying to do everything I could, to keep my head above water and keep a vehicle for transportation. And in the area I live in, you have to have some form of transportation. There is a bus line, but it's not very good. And we're not like a city that has tall buildings and a lot of concentration in one area. It's like all spread out for miles and miles. And so you may live at one end of the city and you have to drive, 10 miles to get to the other, or get around. There's a loop around the city, and then it's grown so much that they've got little pockets of neighborhoods, and they're building bigger throughways and highways to get through to those other sides, and you absolutely have to have a car or some kind of transportation to get there and to get to your job. And I always wanted a motorcycle, but just couldn't afford a car and a motorcycle, pay for both the insurances and gas and stuff like that. But I'm close to paying off a lot of bills, and maybe after the beginning of the year I'll be able to get enough for either a down payment or to pay for a used motorcycle in cash. And I was looking at Facebook. That's actually what I was looking at when I was at the truck stop. I was scrolling through and I was looking at all these used motorcycles on Facebook Marketplace, and they all wanted cash for them. And I did find a few that I could probably do in a few months, but a lot of them were like kind of sketchy. Like, it just said, the description just said 1500 OBO or $1,200. Nothing else. It didn't describe, if it had any kind of damage or any defects, if there was anything wrong with it. Did it run good? Did it run excellent? Or there was no descriptions of the motorcycle itself. So I kind of find that a little sketchy when people won't put information in the description on Facebook. It's like they don't want to commit to saying, yeah, there's something wrong with it, needs to be fixed. And then I did find a lot of them that were very clear about needs a new clutch. Well, it won't start, and it just stopped running. I went through some water and it stopped running, or this and that. And I did find a lot of ads like that where they're very, clear about what was wrong with it. But there was a lot that that they didn't have much information about it. And I kind of started thinking about, well, I don't buy something that I have to put a lot of work into. I just sold a truck for way cheap that needed thousands of dollars worth of work, and I don't want to go through that, especially with motorcycles. I don't know anything about motorcycles. Mechanically, I don't. But I was started to think like, well, it has a warranty and they're new. They should run really good for, you can always get them serviced wherever you buy them at. And this one place, I'd never been there, but I passed by it all the time. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go look just for fun. It's a day off, and went down there, and I started walking through, and I got a really good salesman. He was really helpful, really helping me. And while I wanted to look at the Ninja 500s and some of the sport bikes, because I have been thinking that, well, I've driven a Harley before, but they're so heavy. And I was like concerned about the weight, and I'm not very tall. I'm only 5'3". So I was cruising over to the sport bikes, and I was looking at them, and he was saying, you can sit on them, just, you can't start them, you can sit on them. And I tried to sit on one of the sport bikes, and I couldn't even get my leg over. I was so short, I couldn't, most of them I couldn't sit on. And I was shocked. I was like, I didn't think they were this tall, or I thought, well, they would have some with the seat adjusted lower, but they were all the way that, excuse me, I had COVID about 2 months ago, and I still have this cough that I can't get rid of. So, have a little lingering cough here, but I was shocked that, I couldn't sit on, I looked at the Kawasaki, the Ninjas, and the CF Motos, and Suzuki, the Gixxers, and everything. I couldn't fit on any of them except for a few that I could tippy-toe on. And I don't feel comfortable. And that was like, I think most of them I could only tippy-toe on, one side, which is to me the left side where the kickstand is. But I was so disappointed. And then I looked at the Supermotos, and I just said, I know I probably can't fit on those either. They look a lot taller, but I just want to go cruise and look through it in that area. And those things came up above my belly button, like between my belly button and my boobs. They were just right there. I was like, I am not that short. I was like, there's no way I could ever sit on a Supermoto. And that's really what I wanted, because they're versatile for, they're street legal, but, you can, if there's like terrain, go through the grass or hop over not that I'm going to be doing anything spectacular, but I just really like the Supermotos. And they're much thinner. They're much, they weigh much less. Some of them only weigh like 300 and something pounds, and 300 to 400 pounds. And I was like, I can't, there's no way. And they can't adjust it low enough for me. I'd have to be like a kid's bike. I was so freaking disappointed. I can't believe they make them for the average height of a tall man. You'd have to be 5'10" and above to really be comfortable on a Supermoto, I think. I mean, I can't imagine how. I mean, literally, it was above my belly button. The seats were above my belly button. I was like standing here, I was showing the salesman, these are above my belly button. There's no way. I can't even sit on them. And he's like, my options were super limited. I was getting more and more, discouraged. And because I really, really am, I am somehow going to get a motorcycle. And when you are young and you have opportunities to do things that you really want to do, you need to find a way to do them. Because I don't think I tried hard enough, or I put stuff in the back of my head because of what other people told me. But at the time I was in high school as a teenager, I was under 5 feet tall. So I can understand my mom. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. I would have to ride a mini bike. And that's why I couldn't really ride my cousin's dirt bike. It was so tall. My feet were like 6 inches from the ground. I couldn't, if I tried to stop or turn, I couldn't do it, and I crashed out like twice, I think. And he was like, oh, you're going to mess it up, and made me get off of it. And I was like, no, I want to do it. And he was afraid I was going to smash the pegs or something, mess it up. And so I never did. I didn't try hard enough. Really, I didn't. And I regret that. It's one, a lot of people say, I don't regret anything. And I just think that's such crap, There's things that people regret in their life. They just won't say it, or they don't think of it when they're asked on the spot. But this is one of the things in my life I really regret. It's something that I think I would have, it would just have changed a little course in my life and brought me, I don't know, happiness and more enjoyment or whatever, I don't know what path it would have took me, but I did get to sit on some of them that I could barely sit on, and I got some of they actually gave me insurance estimates too of how much, and I was shocked about that. But I did sit on a CF Moto 2024 450 SS, and it was actually a couple inches too tall. I don't think I could barely touch the ground, maybe. I don't know. It was on the lean from the kickstand anyway, so I was like leaning a little bit, and only because of that. And the one I really want was the Ninja 500, the Kawasaki Ninja 500. And I really want that. That's the motorcycle I want, the sport bike that I want. A Harley girl at my heart, but they're super heavy, and I don't have a lot of options with the Harleys, and there's no way I'm going to buy like a super expensive big Harley. That would be ridiculous. Just ridiculous, So I'm trying to be practical, and the sport bikes are amazingly cheap. I'm surprised, even for a brand new bike. The CF Moto 2024 was about, I think it was around 6,000, maybe a little over 6,000. I can't remember, between $6,000 and $7,000. And they have to put, well, that you got to add the tax and I can't remember, some other charge they have, some other fee. I don't remember what it is. But the Kawasaki Ninja 500 is probably around 6,000 to 7,500, depending. And that was for KRT. And then I did look at a couple of other motorcycles that I could actually fit on. And I looked at a Honda Rebel 2024 1100T, which is, you know, much higher CC. I never thought I was always saying I will never get a 1,000cc motorcycle, but it was beautiful. I could sit on it, and I actually could. The problem with the bigger motorcycles, like the Harleys, the Indian Scouts or Indian motorcycles, they're real heavy, and when you get on it, you need to be able to pick it up and straighten it out. And the weight of some of those motorcycles is just too much, and I'm not going to do something above my limit. But the Rebel 1100T, I mean, I fit on it perfectly. It's a high CC, but it's something that I felt like I can actually handle riding. And it's from the low center of gravity being low, and that gives you a lot more safety, more security, especially when you're starting and stopping. And that's the main reason why, you know, I don't want to just tippy-toe a bike, because that's very dangerous. You know, if you're trying to stop and you just can barely put your toe down, that's not very safe. And I've seen the girls on YouTube that they can't even tippy-toe these big, huge bikes, and they're jumping off at stoplights. And then when the light turns green, they jump on and go. And I'm not going to do something like that. To me, that's super dangerous. And they didn't have a 500 Rebel, but I told them, you know, if they do get one, he was saying they get maybe a shipment once a month in. And he was saying they sometimes have a 500, and I told him if they do, you know, email me or text me or something, let me come down there. I want to sit on it. I want to just see how it is. Try that out. And then they are smaller, so I want to try that. And then I looked at an Indian 2025 Scout Classic, and I loved that one. It was heavy, but it was maneuverable because it was really low. And I could actually pick it up and immediately just, you know, I could put it in line, and it was it was a beautiful motorcycle. And I've loved Indian motorcycles. You know, they're really pretty, really beautiful. But I never seriously thought about them. They are big. They're like Harleys. But the Scout Classic is quite small, and I can fit on it perfectly. It's real low to the ground. And so those are just some of the ones that I could. I was there for maybe about an hour and a half, just trying to figure out what, you know, trying to get comfortable and what. This was just for ideas of how, I mean, you know, I'm not really that short, but I was very disheartened, you know. I couldn't hardly sit on hardly any of the motorcycles. It was so upsetting. But they can lower some of them. You can put a lowering kit on it, and I think it's about, I got an estimate on that. It was like, to have it lowered, to have something lowered, it lowers it about 2 inches. It's $573 to add on to that. And I was like, well, you know, if it's necessary, then just add it on, you know, for us short people. But those were the motorcycles that I looked at. But the insurance, I mean, I was so shocked. Like the CF Moto and the Ninja, they're really cheap motorcycles. Brand new, you know, less than $7,000. The insurance on the Ninja 500 for me, with a good driving record, was $1,850 a year. And I was like, what? That's almost as much as my car. A brand new car. And it's because of the class of motorcycle that it is that there's, I guess, apparently, they're kind of like, I call them disposable motorcycles because they're so cheap and people crash them all the time, and it's just, they get totaled out a lot. And I think that, feeds into the cost of the insurance. The CF Moto was $1,530 per year. And this, okay, for the CF Moto, this is through Dairyland Insurance, and it was their insurance at the dealership. But I guess if I look for better prices, I could find better, look for better quotes, prices, And for the CF Moto, the down payment would be $132 out of $1,530, and the monthly payments were $129 a month. That to me is ridiculous. And the Kawasaki, the Ninja 500 was $155 a month for insurance on that. That cost like $7,000, $7,500 by the time they put all the dealer stuff, all the stuff they need to add to it out the door. And what shocked me was the Classic, the Scout Classic was $1,109 a year, which is about $94 a month, $96 down. And then the Honda Rebel 1100 was $784 a year with almost $70 down and $66.98 a month, which I thought that's backwards, The Scout, the price tag for that was, I think it was between $15,000 and $16,000. It was really nice. I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful motorcycle. The Rebel 1100 is beautiful, beautiful red, gorgeous motorcycle. And it was between, I think, by the time they add all the dealer stuff on it and the tax, it was going to be about $10,000 to $11,000. In the 500, I think you could probably take about $1,500 to $2,000 off that bike, probably. I don't know they didn't have one, so I don't know the price. But probably, a little bit lower. And it's even cheaper. She said, the lady that was doing the insurance estimates told me the 500, the Rebel, would be even cheaper than the Honda, the Rebel 1100, which was $784 a year. So the Rebel 500, she said, is like a little bit cheaper. So kind of shocked because I guess because there's so many crashes and totals on sport bikes, and the propensity for people who ride those, they go really fast and they do have a lot of accidents. And so the larger cruisers and the Honda, they're just, I guess, cheaper, not, they're not as, I don't want to say that, I think Honda's like a really well sold brand that I think a lot of people drive. I see Hondas a lot, the Rebel, it's very, very popular model. But I was so disappointed and shocked. I'm so disappointed because my legs are apparently really short. I know that they are, but and I've gotten on motorcycles, as a passenger, and I know my legs are short, but I just never really, I remember when I was being fitted for the motorcycle on the MSF course, yeah, they did have to lower it really low, but the motorcycles, the 500, the ones that they use are, they're kind of compact, small, and they're easy to maneuver and all that, and it kind of reminded me of the Indian Scout. They're a little bit different, but I don't know. It was a little eye-opening to me, and there's hardly any that I could fit on, as a driver, me being the main rider. And all the years that I was a passenger, I knew it in the back of my mind, but I didn't realize it to this level or this point. That I couldn't fit on hardly any of the super, not the supermotos, but I could fit on none of the supermotos. I mean, literally, they came up above my belly button. The seat was like halfway. I was like, there's no way. And then the sport bikes, I barely could sit on a few of them, but it was just, there's no way I wasn't comfortable. I couldn't even, there's no way I could, without them lowering it. And I still don't even know if they can lower it like 2 inches. Like some of the seats were at 30 inches. And to lower it would be like 28 inches. And I think the Indian Scout it was like at 25 inches or something like that. It made a big difference. I could flat foot one side on the kickstand, and the other was almost flat foot. Maybe like a couple inches being flat foot on that side. But not that I don't think you necessarily have to have both feet flat foot. So that was okay with me. I was fine with that. But even if I could just have at least my toes and the ball of my foot at least planted, I don't want to have just my tippy toes on the pavement, because that's just really dangerous, So, that's a dilemma. I don't want a baby bike, and I don't want a mini bike. Driving around the streets on a mini bike. No, it's ridiculous. Ugh. Okay, that was my experience, and before I even get a motorcycle, it's going to be months. It'll have to be way into the next year, but that was just something I wanted to do, and it was eye-opening, a shock. It was something else to experience. It was an experience. And I felt bad for the salesman. He was trying. He was like, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe let's try this one, or let's try this one. I couldn't fit on hardly any of them. It was hilarious. But then the Indian Scout, honestly, I'm really seriously thinking about that one. It's brand new, it's expensive, but it was the one that I could fit on the most comfortable and the safest. So, or either the Honda Rebel, either one of those. Okay, thank you so much, and hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you.